Henry Timken, welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank
How you
you.
doing?
Thank you for having me on. I'm very good. Very good. Good to see
Absolutely.
you.
Good to see you. It's been quite a while. Good to
It
catch up
has.
off camera.
Yeah,
Um, let's
absolutely.
just get right into it. So,
Yep.
in the past, year or so, you've been living far away from home. Big move, kind of maybe not out of nowhere, but to somewhere not familiar that that doesn't really have a lot of connections for you. How was that?
Yeah, it was great. It's crazy to think that it's almost been 2 years now, which is really crazy, but it's been really awesome. When Caitlin, my fiance, first uh, got the job out here, was like, well, I guess we're going to move. I was working remote and still working remote. And so I was like, yeah, I'm game to do it. And so she moved out in February, and then I followed her out in May. So I just packed up my apartment and used some movers and did the big drive out. So the move itself, it was pretty incredible to see all the parts of the country that I hadn't seen before, and definitely helped that our friend Jack was on the road trip with me. I stopped in Canton, Ohio, and then stopped in Chicago and met up with him for a few days, and somehow convinced him to drive halfway around the country with me. Uh, so that
Kind of
was.
mixed.
I think if I I think you've experienced my previous truck that I had in DC, which was a little worse for wear. I don't think he would have come out with me, but I just bought a new truck, and so he agreed to come out with me. So we blasted our way to Murdo, South Dakota, and stayed there for a night, and got up and did Badlands in the morning, which was really cool, and then did Rushmore, and then pushed all the way to Helena, and so that was the move out, and then just kind of got into the swing of things, and so it's been an awesome process. And I think thankfully I've kind of had a background of moving around quite a bit. I went to Rhode Island for high school, and so have been out of Ohio and out of where I grew up since I was about 14. So did that, which really kind of prepared me for going on to then going to college in DC and then moving out here. It's just kind of one of those things where you learn to be resourceful and kind of independent, and you're able to make friends, I think, a lot easier, and kind of just find people of like mind and like the same hobbies as you, and then just be really great friends with them. So it's been a great process so far.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think the process of just jumping to
Yeah,
to another place is definitely a growing experience. At least
yeah,
the first couple times, as you mentioned, like you've done it a couple times. I've done it a couple times too, and eventually it just becomes kind of commonplace. It's not like
hmm,
you're struggling to figure out how to move for the first time or something like that.
right.
But definitely some pretty big changes. I'm always amazed that. Well, always amazed that Jack was just like, yeah, I'll drive. I mean, I don't know how many hours it was from
Oh,
Chicago,
it was
but still a lot.
from Chicago. We did two 14-hour days in the car, so it was a lot of driving, and really kind of the first part wasn't, or the first day wasn't too bad. The second day was really remote, and I was very glad to have a jerry can of gasoline in my truck, because I was like, if we get stuck out here, we're in the middle of nowhere, and it's going to take a long time for
You're
somebody to
not
get to
walking
us. So
anywhere.
no, 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 you would not have a very good time walking anywhere. I mean, there's stretches of highway that we were on, and it wasn't even the main highway. We took a shortcut, and there were sections for 3 hours where we wouldn't see a building, like no structures, houses, anything. It was just all kind of grassland. And so that would have been a real bummer if we had broken down, but thankfully we didn't. And rolled into town, and at that point, Caitlin had been out here and had made a bunch of friends, and so we rolled in. I think it was Memorial Day that we got there, and went over to some of our friends' house, and Jack and I rolled up, and we were just like, oh, and they were like, we have like food, and cheeseburgers and hot dogs and stuff. And we were like, thank you
Yeah.
so much. And we were like trying to be, this is your first introduction to people out there, and so you want to be, lively and making a good impression. But we rolled in there just like we were broken down. So
Yeah.
it was a funny first introduction to being out here. But
Yeah, I can
yeah,
imagine.
yeah, it's been awesome though, and we're really fortunate to have a lot of really good friends out here that have kind of embraced us and shown us, you know, where to go in Helena and what are cool stuff to do around the state, and have kind of taken us under their wings for stuff like fly fishing and hiking and camping. So it's been awesome to have.
Now is Helena like I mean, I really don't know anything about Montana to be honest. But is it a town or a city? Because I'm
Yeah,
imagining these friends, but I'm also imagining Montana in my head, like they're 30 miles away on their own property or
yeah.
something like that.
It it is what you would call in Montana a city. We are, I think, the fourth largest city. So there's Billings is the largest at just about 100,000 people, and then there's Bozeman, Missoula, and then Helena. And so we only have about 35,000 people in Helena, so it's pretty small. It's built up. We have groceries. It's not like we're hitching our horse to the
Yeah,
town
yeah.
saloon, but
That would be cool.
it's got grocery stores and restaurants and bars and stuff like that. And so it's definitely a lot smaller than what I came from in DC, and being in a city and having all these options around. But at the same time, it's an awesome change of pace. And growing up in Ohio, it was kind of a smaller town that I grew up in, and so after spending, I think it was 8 years in DC, I was kind of ready to make a change and to live somewhere different with different people and different activities. And it's turned out to be really, really awesome. So the nice thing is we can always pop up to Bozeman, which is about an hour and a half away. Which, that's the other thing about living out here. It's totally changed my perspective of driving, because in DC I had my
Oh
car
no.
and would basically just walk everywhere, or you'd take the metro, and if I had to go into Virginia or Maryland, I'd drive my car. Out here, it's like, no, yeah, an hour and a half drive, do that in a day. Like, that's
Yeah.
super easy. And like, even doing 3 hours, it's like, oh yeah, it's there and back. And so that's certainly been an adjustment.
Well, you
But
got the what is it called? Like the Pacific West Railway or something, right? You could always
mhm.
that's kind of like the local metro for for the Midwest.
Yeah, yeah, except they don't have. There's no passenger service around here, so you could hop trains, but that's not a great idea. So it's a lot of cars around here. Now, the flip side of that is we also have probably one of the most robust trail systems anywhere in the country, like right next to our doorstep. So I can drive 2 miles, like 7 minutes down the road, and be out in wilderness. And we've got two local mountains that are like right next to our house, and so we're able to get on trails super easily and go hiking kind of pretty much whenever we want, which is really, really awesome.
Yeah, I'm very jealous. Georgia's first. I mean, just being near a base in general, there's
Yeah.
not going to be much around, and then this part of Georgia, there's no hiking. You don't want to be outside in the summer at all, and in the
No,
winter,
no.
you still don't want to be outside.
Yeah.
Um, as far as the
Yeah.
moving goes, how was the you know adjustment as far as like family and friends, keeping in touch or the stresses that involves?
Yeah, it's definitely been an adjustment. With us both being in DC, we're fairly close to Ohio and Florida, and so it's definitely been a change. We both try to are very family focused, and have some really great friends on the East Coast, and so we've tried to make a pretty big effort to get back for holidays, or just we'll do one or two random trips a year to go over there and visit family. And so it's definitely been an adjustment, but especially for me, like having lived away for a pretty long time, I'm kind of used to it. But it's definitely kind of something that's come into our mind, about being out here. And it's like, well, long term, do we want to be out here? And so that's just kind of another thing that we've thought about. But it's, I think the nice thing about it is it makes the time that you get to spend with friends and family that you don't see often that much more meaningful. So coming back for Thanksgiving and Christmas is like, I try to stay off my phone and just kind of put it in my room and really be engaged with family, which I think is really nice. And it's awesome to be able to get back there and really kind of spend great quality time with them.
If people are thinking, or if a friend came to you, was like, hey, I want to make a big move, or I have a job
Mm-hmm.
offer somewhere,
Right.
that you know some wisdom to pass on to a prospective big move, or real huge change in lifestyle.
Yeah, I would just say, keep your mind open and really just kind of embrace it. Like, if you go into a big move to somewhere, you haven't been before, you don't have friends, you don't have family, whether that is within the United States or internationally, just go for it full force. Like really try to embrace that spot that you're living in, and, try to make the most of it. Find stuff that you enjoy in that spot, find people that share your hobbies, your activities, and make friends with them, and then go enjoy doing that. That's kind of the way that I went into moving out here. I was like, okay, well, if I'm gonna move to Montana, I'm gonna do it to the max. I'm gonna try to do everything that the state has to offer, and I think I've done a pretty good job of that so far. And so, yeah, just definitely going into it, full force, not having any reservations about it would be my advice.
Yeah, unabashedly converting to a Montanan. Is that how you say it?
Montanan, yeah.
Yeah,
I got to spend a few more years here until I can claim Montanan. I'm still
fair enough.
still a transplant at this point, but I've definitely dove into it full force. So it's been awesome, doing stuff that I would have never gotten the opportunity to in living in DC, going to rodeos, skiing all the time, hiking all the time, hunting and fishing. It's really kind of a paradise for sportsmen. So it's been awesome.
Yeah, and I want to add, just to clarify, I have tried all those things in Georgia. It still sucks. Okay, at least where
well,
I'm at. At least where I'm at.
well, the skiing stuff, yeah, it's not quite the same. I think there is a ski hill in Georgia, funnily enough, but
Yeah, nice
after
hill.
the recent storm,
We did get
get
snow.
out
We
there.
got snow in like, and it's hilarious because down here they were freaking out. They had no idea what
Oh
this white stuff falling from the sky was.
yeah.
They have no infrastructure to deal with it whatsoever.
Yep.
So I don't know how many inches we got. Probably like, I don't know. It looked like 3 inches maybe,
Right.
and it just
And it's just
immediately turns.
pandemonium.
Yeah, no one drives. I texted my little work group chat because it snowed during a work day,
Right.
and it was like the day before. We're all like, it's remote work today. No one go in, no accidents. I texted the group chat the day after the snow, or the day of the snow when the roads are already covered. I'm like, hey, I'm going out if anyone needs me to pick something up, and they're like, you're
Right.
crazy. You're gonna drive in this, and it's like, guys, there's water on the ground. You need to calm
Yeah.
down.
I mean, the difference between all like the South when it snows, and then like even growing up in Ohio, it's like we got a couple inches of snow. You're going to school, like it has to
Yeah.
be snowing. And out here, it's like we get a foot of snow and kids are still getting picked up by the school bus, and people are still going to work. So it's definitely that comes with a lot of infrastructure, and so we're
Yeah.
kind of equipped to handle it. But that was funny being in DC for snow like that too. And that was always the same. It was just like you can't traverse right now. Like it's impossible. It's like you're caught in the Donner Pass.
You're gonna have to start eating people, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But
Yeah.
uh,
I remember growing up. I lived in Boston for a year, and walking to one, and Boston gets absurd snow, and I think one time it snowed our whole like front door in. It was probably like 3 feet, and we still had school, and we just woke up early as hell,
yep,
shoveled that stuff out of the door, and I lived on a dead end street, so the plow would just push
push
all
all
of
of
the
it.
snow onto our street. So I'm literally just like waddling through this snow that goes up to my hip.
Yep.
Yeah, what a time.
It's fun, but at least you can build a cool snow fort out of the drift. So that's what we always did as kids.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. People were
Yep.
building some nasty slush men over here. It was not it was not anything
The
you'd want to.
saddest, the saddest snowman in the world.
If that snowman came to life, I think he would add some problems. Let's put it that
Yeah,
way.
he would add some issues. That is funny.
As far as I mean, you mentioned earlier that you have a remote job, which makes the transition easier.
Yep.
I'm curious how your employment situation works when moving such a far distance. Like, do they care? Is it even something that comes up as long as you're showing up on time?
No, it. So I got hired on during the pandemic, and so I started remote at my job. Uh, Eventually, once that kind of cleared up, I went into the office a couple days a week, and then ended up going back remote, and then moving out here. And it hasn't affected it at all. The only change is I still work East Coast hours, so I get up early and then I get off a little early for Mountain Time. But my company's been super, super great about working remote. In fact, my team, my boss is based out of California. I have a coworker in New Jersey, and then a coworker in Alabama, and then I'm in Montana. So it gets a little confusing with 4 different time zones, but it's been really great. GDIT has been fantastic about remote work. So it just kind of worked out super well.
Awesome, awesome.
Yeah, yeah,
Something I've been thinking about personally, as I mentioned to you before off camera, like I'm going through a big transition myself, and kind of narrowing down the things I want to do, not just in my free time, but as part of work, and finding the proper, not necessarily fields, but motivations that are going to, keep me engaged in whatever it is I end up doing, right? I'm curious how your motivations, since, I mean, we've known each other for quite a while now, but going back to, let's say, just graduating school, working, or at the beginning of the pandemic, to now where, congratulations again, you have a fiance, there's other
thank you.
things on the horizon in the future.
Yep.
So how have those things evolved for you?
Yeah, so it getting hired on out of college, I applied to a couple different places. I was mainly kind of in the contracting field, but was kind of between doing working for a private contractor or going the DoD civilian contractor route. And so I got hired on as a subcontracts associate. So basically, our contract is the prime contract vehicle. So GIT holds our contract with the Department of State, and then we have subcontractors. And so I got hired on as kind of an entry level associate for that, and kind of enjoyed it. Thought it was interesting, but definitely had my eyes on other kind of areas of the business. And so I got about a year and a half into that, and there was a new team being stood up on our contract of program control analysts. And so my boss at the time was like, "Hey, I think you'd be a great fit for this. You have a financial background from school and then some of the internships that I had. And so I put my hat in the ring and have been doing that since. And so it's, I think kind of the best thing, my piece of advice is just being flexible and keeping your mind open to stuff that's not necessarily in your wheelhouse, but if it's interesting to you, pursuing that. Because first getting in, it was like kind of getting my foot in the door with the subcontracts position, and then from that I got to go off to do something that I enjoy. And so being kind of flexible, again, same thing with moving. It's like being able to keep your mind open and not turning down opportunities just because it's not something that's necessarily like super in your wheelhouse, has kind of led to where I'm at now, and has been really good. As far as priorities and kind of keeping motivation, I'd definitely say I enjoy a very healthy work-life balance. I come to work and I put my time in, and I do really enjoy what I do. But it's also a vehicle for allowing me to pursue all of my hobbies and all of my interests, and pursue time outside of work. So I think having a good work-life balance is really, really critical to kind of staying focused and happy at a company or at a position. It's one of those things where I feel like I see a lot of people that just dedicate their life to pursuing their job, and you get to the end of it and it's like, oh well, what am I doing outside of this? What activities, interests do I pursue, and does that really make me happy? So I think keeping a good work-life balance and really actively pursuing your interests outside of work is a good way to stay content at a position.
Definitely. I think I have a friend who I won't mention their name, but we talk about our long-term goals, especially financially, and they're all good and everything, but one thing I notice is sometimes you can get mixed up in the making money or living extremely frugally or whatever it is, if that's your goal, but also forgetting the realization that the end goal, the point, isn't to just have a bunch of money. You want to have a good life. That's what the money is eventually facilitating, whether that's in the now or in retirement or whatever. But yeah, I think that can definitely get lost, especially in the ups and downs, and sometimes adrenaline of like a career, developing your career.
Yeah, definitely. No, I think it's an important thing to kind of take a step back and really figure out what your priorities are, and really what makes you feel fulfilled. And money is definitely a part of that, and earning money through your job kind of allows you to pursue that stuff. But definitely keeping a balance of what is my prior, like, what do I want to get out of work, you know? Because if it's just money, it's like, well, you know, yeah, it's great and all, but, you know, you kind of want to be challenged and you want to learn and grow and, you know, do that within your profession and then out of your profession, you know? So I think that's definitely a really important balance.
You mentioned having like, um, checking in with yourself almost with what your priorities are. Do you personally have like designated, maybe like times of year, or is it kind of a more fluid process when something might happen, you're like, well, maybe I need to reevaluate what my goals and priorities are.
Yeah, kind of a fluid process, you know. I definitely in through my job we do goal setting, which is I at first I was like, this is kind of corny, but it's actually been really helpful of you know, sitting down and thinking about what my career goals are in the short term and long term. And so that's kind of a nice reminder, you know, once a year. But then just kind of throughout the year, like you said, when stuff comes up, it's like, all right, well, you know, I'm doing this currently. What do I want to do? You know, do I want this thing to stay the same? Do I want to pursue other stuff? You know, and so I think like checking in with yourself and just seeing where you're at and where you want to go and kind of figuring out that roadmap of like, all right, well, I'm at A, I want to go to B, you know, what steps are in between there and like what should I prioritize is super helpful.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And as a what do you call it, engaged man, how does that process I guess change and evolve, with communicating with your partner?
Yeah, it's definitely different, you know, when before you're in a serious relationship, you're just kind of on your own and you're, you know, goal setting for yourself and, you know, your priorities are your own priorities and now, you know, being engaged, it definitely changed stuff a lot and so it's been an awesome process to kind of look at each other and talk to each other and say, hey, you know, what do we want to um, do together. And so it's been really awesome, you know, like not only focusing on yourself, but then also going on to, you know, prioritize with her and say, okay, well, what do we want to accomplish, you know, and like where do we see ourselves? And so it's definitely been super interesting, and you know, we have really great communication, so it's been an easy process.
Awesome. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
exciting.
yeah,
uh, take, Taking a little step back to something you said earlier, um, with the change in job, going from that entry level position to something you're a little bit more passionate about. Was that transition something that you immediately were like, you jumped on, or was it maybe in the, kind of an amorphous position that you're like, oh, well, maybe I should do this, maybe I shouldn't? How would that process go?
yeah. I pretty much jumped into it. I kind of was getting to a place where I was like, well, I kind of want to be challenged more, and you know, it subcontracts was super interesting, but you know, it wasn't where I could see myself ending up eventually. And kind of same thing with that goal setting and that roadmap. It's like, well, you know, it's good experience and it's definitely stuff. It's stuff that I learned during that job makes my current job easier and kind of I get to be like the SME for subcontracts, which is super useful. But in terms of the new job, when it was coming up, I was like, yeah, this sounds right up my alley. You know, I'd love to be part of a new team and kind of come in and set the groundwork for pretty significant changes on our contract, and so I've been a part of that and have really enjoyed that.
You say building it up from the ground, kind of, or laying the groundwork. Was that something that excited you or intimidated you, kind of coming in and maybe not having experience in these certain areas and not really having I guess a formula or some trodden path
Right.
ahead of you?
Yeah, no, it was definitely super exciting. I had been on the contract for like a year and a half at that point, and you start to kind of pick up on stuff, and it's like, our team was kind of stood up as people that could help with the efficiency of the contract and kind of really not police it, but really kind of like focus it. And so that was really awesome to be able to be a part of that. And so it was really exciting for me, and being able to figure out stuff and kind of lay that roadmap was super interesting. I really enjoyed that process of just kind of figuring out what works, and kind of writing the SOP for it, basically.
Absolutely. I think the one of my favorite parts of um, being in the army has just been all the different stuff I've gotten to do. Just like obviously, there's the more field oriented, like physical stuff, but just
Right.
the organizational and logistical and all these tasks that are used to run a I don't know if machine's the right word, but essentially an organization when you're
Right.
creating processes or executing a mission, all the things that have to be checked that you wouldn't even think of that
Mm-hmm.
are, as you mentioned, like foundational. They're pillars of executing anything successfully. I think that stuff is really interesting, and getting insight into that is very valuable because having that bigger picture perspective when you're maybe you move on from a position like that and do something a little more niche helps you understand why of what the why of why what you're doing matters.
Right. For a second there, I thought you were going to say all the different acronyms that go into being in the army.
Oh. Absolutely not. There's way too many of those, and a lot of them. One of the worst things about being in the
Is the
army
acronyms.
is not only the acronyms, but so many acronyms repeat and have multiple meanings.
Yep. Yep.
So you never really know what anyone says because everyone wants to be cool and just use the acronym and not
Yep.
not communicate effectively.
It's like this is less efficient than just saying the full sentence.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but I agree with your point on, kind of seeing everything that goes into it, and you know, understanding how much effort and kind of different positions and everything that goes into setting up, something like business, or, being in the army, in the military, how much the logistics and focus goes into it.
Yeah. Just a quick thing because um, I am specifically curious about this because I want to have a remote position. But do you delineate workspaces at home? Like, do you
Yes.
have like an office? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So originally, when I first got hired on, I was in an apartment in DC with our friend Jack, and I had my desk in my bedroom with
Beautiful
no
desk.
windows. It is a beautiful desk. I'm still using the desk, but it was in a room with no windows, and
Yeah.
I like had work
Going.
and then my bed, and it was middle of COVID. Everything was shut down. I am surprised I didn't lose my mind. So definitely having like a separate cut between workspaces is really nice. And I think the two things that I've found from remote work that are important are having those two different spaces. And like, you know, the way my job is, I pretty much have to be on a monitor or at a desk, and I think it's kind of nice because I can, have a really good break from my office upstairs, and then, my downstairs and the kitchen. And so, like, having that clean break is really nice. And then the other thing is actually setting up your office to be like a nice environment, and like, having it set up ergonomically, and kind of that being your space, because, with an office, you're getting up all the time and going to different meetings and offices and stuff like that. With working from home, you're just in your one spot. And so having that set up in a way that works for you is definitely important.
For sure. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully.
It is. I hope you land a remote position because it is really nice. It's always a question that anybody asks them, like, oh yeah, I'm working remote out here. They're like, oh well, like, do you like it? It's like, yeah, it's really nice. It gives me flexibility, and the nice
Yeah.
thing is I can kind of work from wherever. And so for the past holidays, I worked down in Florida and then in Ohio and San Francisco and then back here in Helena. And so, having that flexibility is really, really nice.
Is the line because is the line between working and vacation more blurry when working remotely? Because technically you can pretty much work. Well, you can work on vacation, right? Because you can work
Yeah.
remotely.
Yeah, I would say, and I think it's kind of dependent on what your job is and what your company is. Because, so for me, over the holidays, I'll work for 4 days and then I'll take off and, we'll have the holiday. And thankfully, with my position, they're very good about kind of that strict, like, hey, if you're off, you're off. You're not going to be getting bugged, which is really nice. And so I think for me, there's less of a line, but your mileage may vary. There's some jobs definitely that you can take off and they're still going to be calling you and you're still going to have to log on. And so I think that was kind of a big hurdle at first, working remote, um, and being like, oh, well, I can just get on my computer and just do this thing really quick. And so, like, you kind of have to learn to be like, okay, I'm working, I'm not working.
Yeah. Well, surprise, surprise, the army doesn't care.
Oh,
you you
I
are
would
on
imagine.
call
24
24/7.
7. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I think you're going to be ready to go and get
Yeah, I think
a
a
job
normal
that,
will be a
yes.
vacation. But
Yes, exactly.
do you have any people, maybe people you know or people you admire in some way that you might not know personally, that you see as, I don't necessarily want to use the word role model, but as far as when you're looking to design your life or looking at the things you want in your life, are there people you look to as like, okay, that's a decent model for what I want or maybe what I definitely don't want?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I would say I had an internship in college with General Dynamics Corporate, and got to work with some really really awesome people. And there's a couple people that I still stay in touch with that were kind of more in senior positions, and I've talked to them a lot about kind of long term careers and how they got there. And so there's two guys that I really kind of respect and admire, and was appreciative of them kind of showing me the ropes back when I was just internshipping. And so those two guys are definitely a real influence on me, and especially being in the same company, it's cool to see kind of how they got to their place and see what that roadmap looks like. And it's not necessarily the positions they were in were not necessarily something that, like, I want to do myself, but just seeing their process definitely is pretty inspiring.
Is there sorry, is there something specific about the way they did things or the path that they unveiled to you or something like that? Or
Yeah, I mean, they were both super hard workers, and I think they both really enjoyed what they were doing too. And so, they kind of had impressed upon me that, you know, even though they were in more senior positions and had a lot of experience, all of that experience had been mostly positive, and they had really enjoyed. And so I think what was impressed upon me is you can get where you want to by working hard at something that you enjoy. You can get where you want to go just by grinding and really working your absolute hardest and really just being fully to the max. But, if you're not enjoying it, it seems a lot less worthwhile.
Yeah, no, I think that's where probably stuff like burnout comes in.
Yeah,
If you're, as you mentioned earlier, for example, just doing it for the money, like how long can you do that? Maybe a couple
right,
of years, but you know, 40, if you want to make a career out of just doing it for the money, probably not, right?
right, right. Yeah, no, definitely.
So do you have any outstanding goals? It's kind of cliche because it's the beginning of it's beginning of 2025 to date this. Um, but do you have any long-term goals that you see yourself, um, not being temporary goalposts, but being kind of anchors where you're directing your energies to get to this point or this status or this career or this family or whatever?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, kind of the number one thing will always be family. So in the short term, making sure that everything goes good with the wedding, and I'm kind of fulfilling my responsibilities with that. And then after that, long term, I would love to have a family and be able to be in a spot where I can provide for them effectively, and you know kind of show them the same upbringing that I had. And that would be kind of long term. My number one goal is having really close ties to family, and just providing for them.
Absolutely. And you mentioned a little bit earlier, but probably not a long-term Montanan. Is that
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, again, it's kind of up in the air at this point, but eventually we have such strong ties to Ohio and Florida that we'll, I think, eventually find our way back. But and as far as timeline for that, you know, who knows? So it's definitely something that we've been kind of talking about, and we'll we're staying in the same spot for a while. We're definitely, we've got some more enjoyment to get out of Montana and some more fulfillment to get out of here. So it'll be here for a bit, but then after that, we don't know what the future holds.
so? The personal projects are upmost, foremost, wedding.
Wedding, wedding, yeah. It's been an awesome process. It's been interesting. It's nobody ever tells you how much goes into it, and how much of a process it is. And so thankfully, my lovely fiance Caitlin is a pretty awesome planner, and is a good prioritizer. So she's been crushing it, and it's just been super fun, and kind of meeting. Yeah, I mean, I've already met her family, but kind of realizing that we're going to be melding these two families together is pretty awesome. So we're excited for that, and I couldn't ask for better in-laws. So it's a very exciting time of life.
No, it definitely sounds exciting, and I think the adjectives you're using to describe the process are not the same adjectives you always hear. So that's good stuff. That's good. That's a good start.
Yeah, it's I have heard that some people have challenges during it, but we've been really enjoying it, and it's just fun to do stuff together, and to really kind of understand each other deeper, and really get into what our likes and dislikes are, and what we both enjoy together. And so it's been really fun.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah,
I really appreciate you coming on the show and sharing with us. Have any
thank you, sir.
closing comments?
Oh, it's thank you for having me on. It's been really great chatting to you, and I would say closing comments. Just I hope everybody has a very healthy and happy 2025. And it should be a very interesting year. So I just
Will
definitely
be.
tell people to you know be with their families and be with their friends and to just really enjoy this year.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching and listening today. Remember to like, subscribe, and follow to keep up to date with new content as it comes out. I appreciate your support and encourage you to exchange your thoughts in the comments below. As always, keep an open mind.